Hello, everybody. Trailer Trash Tim. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me today. Yes, there, I'm saying it. I believe that Joe Biden is going to resign the presidency, and I believe he's going to do it sooner rather than later. And I'm going to tell you why that is the case in this video. As you know, if you watch me regularly, I've been a little undecided about this. Nothing would really have surprised me one way or another. Um, and there have been times when I thought that President Trump wouldn't be able to make it as well. I think Trump is fine. I don't think anything is going to keep him from receiving the nomination next week in Milwaukee. We're just waiting to see who his vice presidential selection is going to be. If I had to bet money right now, I would probably say it's going to be Marco Rubio. I hope it is not. I'm holding out hope for Vivek Ramaswamy, but I think that's probably not going to be the case. But as far as Joe Biden goes, my feeling up until the last couple of days has been that he was going to receive the nomination, and it was just going to be a rematch of 2020. But I have felt this whole time that Donald Trump was going to win this thing, possibly in a landslide. But a few things have happened over the past couple of days that have caused me to change my mind completely. And now I am firmly in the camp of those, however many there may be, who believe that Joe Biden cannot survive and that he is going to resign. That is what I believe. Now, it must be said, in case anyone doesn't know it already, that Biden has the nomination in hand, which is to say, he has all the delegates he needs. If he makes it to the convention in Chicago, then the nomination is his. He can simply dig in his heels as he's currently doing, or at least somebody behind the scenes, Jill Biden, is doing it for him. And he is adamant in his declarations that he is going to be the party's nominee. And of course, that is the case. If he goes to Chicago, he has the nomination in hand. He's got the delegates. It is his nomination. The only thing that could keep him from getting the nomination that I am aware of would be for him to come forward and say, I'm not going to accept the nomination. This is not, of course, not unprecedented. Lyndon Johnson did this, of course, in 1968. Probably because he thought he was going to lose the nomination to RFK, and I think he would have had Kennedy not been assassinated. But whatever the case, I think it's a tough road ahead for Biden, and I think there are a lot of power brokers in the Democratic Party that really want him to step aside, because I believe the common belief is among these so-called power brokers that this is a losing ticket, that Biden cannot beat Trump in a rematch for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of angst in the country. People are anxious about the economy, about the border, about war, about governmental overreach. And of the two last men standing, I think the general consensus is that Trump is at least a little more palatable to the country than Biden is. It's undeniable that we were in better shape under Trump. The economy was roaring. Inflation was low. He did not get us embroiled in any major shooting wars. We were not so antagonistic toward Russia and other world powers. There was just a lot of stability in America when Trump was president. That's undeniable, and the American people know that. And it has often been said, and I believe it's true, that at the end of the day, Americans vote their pocketbooks. Bad economies get presidents fired. It happened to Carter. It happened to Papa Bush. And I believe it's going to happen to Biden if he stays in this race, which I don't believe he's going to do. And now I want to tell you why I believe that Biden is going to get out of this race and resign. And I believe it's going to happen very soon. Here is why. In no particular order, first of all, the New York Times has called for Joe Biden to resign the presidency not once, but twice. And as American newspapers go, they don't get any more loyal to the Democratic Party than the New York Times. The New York Times is basically the main publishing arm, this liberal rag of the Democratic Party. Now, I don't know if they're getting their marching orders from Barack Hussein Obama, whom they revere, but I believe that the New York Times sees this as a losing ticket, which it is, and there's no hope in the minds of their editorial staff, obviously, that Biden can beat Trump in a rematch. So they have called for Biden to resign, not once now, but twice. But it is not, and there is some speculation that Obama may be behind that. I've been saying that Obama's behind the scenes pulling the chains, that he's the puppet master. But you got to think about it like this. If Obama realizes that the Biden-Harris ticket is a losing ticket, then he has nothing to gain by Biden running again. I think actually there's a closer team in place in the Biden administration that is actually calling shots. I do believe that the puppet analogy is accurate. I think the person who has really got their heels dug in and is really calling the shots, at least on this matter, is Jill, the most cruel woman in America. Jill Biden is obsessed with position. She is obsessed with status. She is obsessed with power. She is obsessed with being the first lady. And she is basically saying, in my opinion, nobody is going to take this away from us. It's pitiful. It's pathetic. It is cruel. It is heartless. But I believe that she is the one who has her heels dug in. And there are other players behind the scenes that also don't want Biden to resign. But I think the forces that are now aligning against the notion of a Biden nomination are simply becoming too strong. You've got the editorial boards of the New York Times who have called for his resignation twice. The Atlantic, all these liberal rags now are calling for Biden to resign. The Atlantic has called for him to resign. The New Yorker has called for Biden to resign. The Chicago Tribune has called for Biden to resign, as has the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Economist, and on and on and on it goes. The Washington Post and the Washington Journal have not called for him to resign. However, they have said, their editorial boards have said that Biden should seriously consider stepping down, which is almost as bad as saying that he needs to resign. Now, the tide is turning, folks. This is what got me to thinking about this. It's not just these liberal publications that are calling for Biden to resign. There are power brokers within the Democratic Party who also want him to step down. There are now people within Congress, Democrats, who are openly calling for Joe Biden to resign and step aside. So these voices are getting louder and louder and louder, not only by the day, but by the minute. And I believe the tide is totally turning against Joe Biden. And I don't believe he can stare this down. I get the sensation of what happened the final few weeks of the Nixon administration when he was basically told with regard to Watergate by Republican congressmen, listen, we simply don't have the votes to curtail or stave off impeachment. You're going to have to resign. And that's what happened with Nixon. The pressure just got to be too much on him. And I believe that the pressure on Biden is simply going to be overwhelming. And it's even compounded and complicated when you factor in his current mental state. The voices are simply too loud. The pressure is simply too strong. And I just don't believe he can withstand this at all. And that's why I think he's going to go. Another thing to consider is that the campaign money, the donations are drying up for Joe Biden. He's not raising any money. And everybody knows that if you want to win the presidency, you got to raise a lot of money. And I mean a lot of money, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, if you want to wage a successful or even a competitive campaign for the presidency, but the donors are drying up. Their checks are put away in their pockets. They're just not writing them anymore. Now, more about that in just a moment, but I want you to think about this. And this is really what got me thinking in this manner. Today is Wednesday. Tomorrow is Thursday. And all this week, there have been NATO meetings in the U.S., and on Thursday afternoon or evening, Joe Biden is scheduled to give a press conference, ostensibly to take questions about the NATO summit that has been held this week, every day this week. Now, this is a rare occasion that Biden actually faces the press. As you know, he is largely shielded from the press. When he does face the press, it is always in a controlled environment. He always knows what's going to be asked. He always has notes and teleprompters and aides, and there's no chance of there being any surprise. And still, he stumbles and bumbles his way through these press conferences, rare though they may be. And of course, that's understandable. But this Thursday, I'm sure he'll be given every tip-off they can possibly give him, but he is on the world stage this Thursday. And if things do not go well, folks, this is only going to get worse. And I do not believe it is going to go well, because day by day by day, we see it before our very eyes. Joe Biden's medical condition, call it Parkinson's, call it Alzheimer's, whatever you believe it is, it's not getting better. And it seems to get worse with each passing day. I'm sure you've seen reports. I've seen reports from neurosurgeons that have said he's got Parkinson's. There's no question about this. One neurosurgeon was quoted as saying, "I can diagnose this from across the room." We know, of course, that what's her name? Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, whose name escapes me, Jean something. I'm confusing her name with a chef that I follow on YouTube, Jean-Pierre. Karine Jean-Pierre. She got hammered by a CBS News reporter the other day on this issue of the fact that Biden has been visited at least 10 times, I think it's 12 times, by a neurosurgeon, and she did not want to address this. And she refused to give the name of this neurosurgeon, which was ridiculous. She was right to be asked who this person was, and she said she can't reveal that. Well, that's nonsense. This woman does not know what she's talking about. Anybody who visits the White House is a matter of public record. If you go and visit the White House, you have to sign a guest log, basically, which is out for everyone to see in the press. There are no secrets as far as this is concerned. So we know that a neurosurgeon came to see him a dozen times, and we know who the man was by now. It's out in the press. As an aside, it kind of is silly when you think about it. It's kind of a faux outrage for CBS News to be protesting the fact that Biden apparently has mental issues of some mental clarification issues of some kind. It's like so many of these people are feigning shock that Biden is having these issues now, like you didn't know he had these issues 2, 3, 4 years ago, for heaven's sakes, but you sat on your hands and you sat on your typewriters and you didn't say a blooming thing about it. But now it's out in the open. It's obvious. Everybody knows it. The only people who are denying this man's medical condition and his mental incapabilities are those who are closest to him on his staff, that inner circle in the White House. But everybody else knows it, and everybody else is talking about it, including the big money donors, including the media, including the editorial staffs of these aforementioned newspapers. Everybody knows it, and the voices are getting louder and louder and louder. And what I'm saying is, I do not believe this press conference can be anything but a disaster. It's not going to go well. Do you think that he's gotten any better, medically speaking, since the debate with Trump? There's no way. He is at least that bad with his voice trailing off, and you can't understand him, and he's saying things that don't make sense, and he has no comprehension of what he's been asked. It's not going to get better, folks. And in this press conference Thursday, it is going to expose for the nation and the world how incapacitated this man is. And I predict that the voices after this press conference are going to be so overwhelmingly loud from Democrats, from liberals, from more newspapers and more media outlets. It's just going to be too much. And Biden, I believe, is going to have no choice but to resign. And I believe it's going to happen soon. I believe it could happen this weekend. Today is Wednesday, July the 11th. Happy birthday to my precious daughter, Tia. I love you, honey. But I believe it's going to happen within days. I believe it could happen by this weekend. I honestly believe that. We'll come back in my next video, maybe not my next video, but, by next week, we'll come back and you can tell me, buddy, you were all wet. And maybe I am, but I don't think so. Now, I said the money, the donations to Biden are drying up, and they are. But the fact is he does have a war chest of approximately $2 million. Now, what is the significance of that war chest? Well, you've heard it said that a lot of people want Biden to step aside and create a path for somebody perhaps like Gavin Newsom. I don't believe that's going to happen, and here is why. I believe that Biden is going to step aside and his spot is going to be filled by Kamala Harris. The reason I say that is because only Kamala Harris has access to the $200 billion war chest. Why is that? Because these monies were donated to the Biden-Harris ticket. So I believe the ticket is going to be Harris, and whoever becomes the vice president, or the vice presidential, the vice president, I believe it's going to be a Trump-Harris election this November. And I'm not put off by that at all. Personally, I believe that whatever Trump was going to do to Biden, I believe he'll do it to Harris, if not worse. You must remember, Kamala Harris ran for the Democratic nomination 4 years ago, and she did terrible. She was a terrible candidate, and she was rejected by the Democratic voters. That's why it was a little surprising when Biden picked her to be his vice president, but he had declared, it's going to be a black woman. Well, okay, you wanted her, you got her, and now she is going to be a liability for the Democrats. I think at some point the Democrats are just going to be in a position of conceding this election to Trump. I think they're going to have to sooner or later. Anyway, now I want to give you an example of a person who is calling for Biden to resign and get out of the race. And this man is a major player in a major Democratic Party power broker. This man is David Axelrod, former senior advisor to Lord Obama, and he's still tight with Obama. So I think it's safe to conclude that whatever Axelrod is saying about Joe Biden is probably simply an echo of what Barack Obama himself believes. I want you to listen closely to what Axelrod says here.
Democracy, but the one person that no one can outrun is Father Time. Mm-hmm. Tom Brady won a Super Bowl 3 years ago, and he's out of football. Okay, why? It doesn't detract from his greatness or what he's done. It's just there are certain immutable facts of life, and those were painfully obvious on that debate stage. And the president just doesn't seem to he hasn't come to grips with it. He's not winning this race. He's more likely, if you just look at the data and talk to people around the country, political people around the country, it's more likely that he'll lose by a landslide than win narrowly.
Okay, there you have it. That's David Axelrod. I don't think it's a stretch to say that he is basically echoing the sentiments that Barack Obama is probably expressing in private. But there you have it. That's just one example. I could give you a lot, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen in the media a lot of Democratic Party voices that are calling for Biden to step aside, and that's why I believe the opposition to him is simply overwhelming. These are not Republicans, folks. These are Democrats. These are big players in the Democratic Party who are saying that Biden can't win and he needs to step aside. Okay, so there you have it. My prediction that Joe Biden is going to resign, and I believe it's going to happen quickly. I think it's going to happen within the next few days. I believe it could happen by this weekend. So you're talking about what, the 14th, 15th, thereabouts of July, and I believe that by next week we're going to have a new president. I absolutely believe that. So tell me below what you believe. Now let me move on to one more thing before I go. I don't know if you want to call this taunting or not, but a couple of nights ago, President Trump was doing a rally in Florida, and he was joined by, among others, Marco Rubio, which is why I think that I'm starting to get a sense that his VP may be Rubio. I think we could do worse, but he's certainly not my first pick. But at this rally, President Trump challenged Biden to a round of golf. Did you see this? I want you to look and listen for a few seconds. This is about a minute clip, but I want you to listen to what President Trump had to say about Joe Biden playing him in a round of golf.
And in the debate, Sleepy Joe also declared that he wanted to test his skills and stamina against mine on the golf course. Can you believe this? Did you ever see him swing? He's like this. That's why this evening I am also, and this is in honor of you and everybody here, is 45,000 people. That's a lot of people. I'm also officially challenging Cricket Joe to an 18-hole golf match right here. Underows Blue Monster, considered one of the greatest tournament golf courses anywhere in the world, one of the great courses of the world. It will be among the most watched sporting events in history, maybe bigger than the Ryder Cup or even the Masters. And I will even give Joe Biden 10 strokes aside. 10 strokes, that's a lot. That means 20 strokes in case you don't play golf. I will give him 10 strokes aside, and if he wins, I will give the charity of his choice, any charity that he wants, $1 million. And I'll bet you he doesn't take the offer. I would bet because he's all talk. But what that match will do is prove that Joe is, in fact, all talk and no action.
Okay, there you have it. How would you love to be the caddy for President Trump if they actually now, of course, Biden responded to this. It wasn't Biden, it was his keepers who, I'm not even going to get into it, but they were saying, well, we're too busy creating jobs and building the economy and, all this kind of just nonsense, utter nonsense. Trump is fun to watch. I have my issues with Trump, but this man is so entertaining, I have to tell you. But there you have it, folks. I believe this time next week we're going to have a new president. I'm putting my neck out there. That is my prediction. I would love to hear your comments on this timely matter. I'd love to hear what you have to say. What do you believe is going to happen? Where do you think I'm right or wrong in my reasoning about this? But there you have it. Listen, do me a big favor if you would and give me a thumbs up on this video. Like this video, share this video on social media with your friends and family and enemies or whatever. I would greatly appreciate that very much. I wanted to point out one of our subscribers, a buddy of mine, Tracy Laurie up in Minnesota, land of the Golden Gophers. You got me down here in Alabama, and you got Tracy up there in Minnesota. Tracy has her own channel. I'm going to link it down below, and I invite you to go and check her channel out. Tracy and her wonderful son, Tony. We're all friends over on X. You can follow me over on X, Twitter, if you are so interested. If you have not yet subscribed to the old Triple T channel, I believe Tracy would advise you to do so. That would be fantastic. Hey, listen, if you're interested in the greatest health and nutritional supplements at wholesale prices, I want you to check out Live Good. Go to jointriplet.com and avail yourself of that opportunity. Thank you so much for joining me, everybody. This is Trailer Trash Tim, and I will see you all very soon.